back 23 yards, just 3.8 a run last week. Don't be shocked if he improves, though. That is, if New Orleans doesn't fix their run defense, which gave up 5.8 a run and 81 yards to Bucky Irving in their loss, 136 on 9 points.
All right, so, on the surface, this game we're diving into this week, Broncos and Saints, it might look like just your typical kind of Thursday night blowout you see sometimes.
Yeah, 33-10 final score.
Right, exactly.
Not exactly a nail-biter.
I was going to say, but as always, especially with your insight, there's always more to these games than just the final score, right?
Absolutely. And this one says this game is like a masterclass in everything that makes the NFL so interesting. You've got, the coaching narratives, the team struggles, just the whole kind of ebb and flow of a season all wrapped up in this one game.
Yeah, and speaking of narratives, you can't talk about this game without talking about Sean Payton returning to New Orleans, facing the Saints for the first time since he left.
Right.
And it's not like he just eked out a win. He absolutely dismantled them. What do you make of that? Is this just Payton showing them what they're missing?
Well, you can't discount the emotional element of a game like this. Payton obviously had something to prove.
Right.
But even beyond that, I think he just completely outcoached Dennis Allen in this game.
Yeah.
He knew exactly how to exploit the weaknesses that have been plaguing the Saints all season, particularly on the defensive side.
Well, and you mentioned those struggles, and it's more than just this one game, right? The Saints are now on a 5-game losing streak this season.
Yeah, tough look.
After starting 2-0. So you got to think what's going on there. Is it just the injuries they've had, or is there something more?
Well, the injuries certainly haven't helped. Losing Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, those are big blows to any offense.
Absolutely.
But I do think there are some deeper issues here that go beyond just who's on the injury report.
Okay, like what?
Well, let's start with that defense. 110 points and almost 1,500 yards allowed in just 11 days. Those are historically bad numbers.
Yeah, you don't see that very often.
Especially for a Saints team that historically prides itself on defense.
Right. Traditionally, they're a pretty strong defensive team.
Exactly. So something's not right there. And then on top of that, you have those head-scratching coaching decisions.
Yeah, we got to talk about that timeout, then kneel at the end of the first half.
What was that about?
Everyone was so confused. I feel like usually you call a timeout in that situation if you're the Saints, maybe trying to get the ball back and squeeze in one more drive before halftime.
Right, try to get some points on the board. But calling a timeout and then just kneeling, it made no sense.
It seemed like it completely backfired.
It took all the momentum away from the Saints, and it felt like a microcosm of this larger issue they have right now, which is a lack of direction on the field.
Right. It's like they didn't know what they were trying to do.
Exactly. And that lack of leadership, it just all circles back to Sean Payton, doesn't it?
It really does. It's almost impossible not to compare this Saints team to the Payton era.
Right.
The contrast is so stark.
You see how Payton just controlled the game from start to finish?
Yeah, just methodical.
He leaned on the run game.
Yeah.
He capitalized on those Saints defensive weaknesses. And it wasn't flashy.
No.
But it was effective.
Yeah. It was like he knew exactly where to hit them where it would hurt the most.
Yeah. He exploited their defensive scheme perfectly, used a lot of misdirection play action that just completely threw the Saints linebackers off balance.
They were always a step behind.
And that hesitation, that's all it takes sometimes. Just enough space for the Broncos running backs to find those holes and break free for big gains.
And it's not like the Broncos are known for having this dominant run game on paper.
Right, exactly.
But they executed Payton's game plan to perfection.
And it wasn't just the offense. The Broncos' defense, they really stepped up in this game, too.
Yeah, they did.
Especially Cody Barton.
Oh, man, what a game he had.
That strip sack, the near interception, and then that 52-yard pick six.
Yeah, he was everywhere.
He was all over the field.
Like a one-man wrecking crew.
Exactly.
But going into this game, I feel like all anyone was talking about was the quarterback matchup.
Yeah.
The battle of the rookie quarterbacks, Bo Nix for the Broncos and Spencer Rattler for the Saints.
Right. Big expectations for both those guys.
So what'd you think of their performances?
It was kind of a tale of two cities, wasn't it? You had Nix with that almost comedic sequence where he overthrows one wide-open receiver and then underthrows the next on back-to-back plays.
Oh, man, that was rough.
It was like watching a rookie quarterback masterclass in what not to do.
I was going to say, you got to wonder if maybe some of that Russell Wilson magic is rubbing off on him.
Right.
Maybe not in the best way.
Maybe not in this case.
Yeah.
But, to Nix's credit, he did settle down after those early misfires.
Yeah, he did make some plays with his legs, too.
Yeah, he did enough to get the win, which, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right? But for both Nix and Rattler, this game just really highlighted, I think, the biggest question mark surrounding both of them, which is, can either of these guys actually be the franchise quarterback their teams need?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is, and I don't think we got a definitive answer in this game.
No, not really. Especially for Rattler. I mean, he was missing his top receivers out there. Is it even fair to judge him too harshly in that situation?
Well, it's tough, for sure. But even with a depleted receiving core, I think you want to see a young quarterback at least try to manage the game, limit the mistakes. And we didn't really see that from Rattler in this one.
No. I mean, it seemed like everything that could go wrong did go wrong for him.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not saying he's a bust or anything, but this game just amplifies those concerns about whether or not the Saints really have their long-term answer at quarterback.
Okay, so we've talked about Peyton's impact, the Saints' struggles, the rookie quarterbacks, but what about the bigger picture here? What does this game mean for both of these teams moving forward?
Well, I think for the Saints, the alarm bells have to be ringing at this point. 2 humiliating home losses in a row.
Yeah, that's got to sting.
It does. And the calls for Dennis Allen's job, those are only going to get louder.
Yeah, especially after that timeout. I mean, I get making a questionable call, but that one, it almost felt like it encapsulated everything that's wrong with this team right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It was just a complete lack of awareness.
Yeah, lack of direction.
Exactly. And until they figure that out, I don't see things getting much better in New Orleans.
So the Saints searching for answers. The Broncos, on the other hand. They seem to have found something special. Are they contenders in the AFC?
I mean, they're exceeding expectations, that's for sure. And you got to give Peyton credit. He's brought a new energy, a clear vision to this team.
Yeah, and you can see it on the field.
Absolutely. They're playing disciplined football, physical football.
And they're finding ways to win.
Exactly. Even when they're not playing their best.
That's the sign of a well-coached team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing to win when everything's clicking, but those close games where you got to grind it out.
Right. That's where you really see what a team is made of.
And that's what makes the Broncos so dangerous, I think.
Right.
They're not blowing teams out, but they're finding ways to win these close ones, which you need to do.
Especially in the AFC.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you look at that conference, it is absolutely loaded.
It's a gauntlet.
You got Mahomes and the Chiefs, Herbert and the Chargers, even the Raiders. They're looking dangerous this year.
Right, you can't count them out.
No, you can't. So for the Broncos to be contenders in that conference, it's a tall order.
It is. But hey, they say defense wins championships.
That's the saying.
And that Broncos defense, they're looking pretty special so far.
They are. And it all starts with Vance Joseph.
That's right. Their defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was a head coach in this league, and now he's back in Denver.
It's funny how things work out sometimes.
It is. But he seems to have found his niche as a defensive coordinator.
Right.
And that Broncos defense is reaping the benefits.
So we talked about earlier those storylines, the narratives that really jump out in this game. You've got Peyton's return, obviously the Saints' struggles, the rookie quarterbacks, but when it comes down to it, what's the biggest takeaway here for you?
You know, for me, it's got to be just the stark difference in trajectories between these two teams.
Right. One team trending up, one team trending down.
Exactly. You get the Saints, they're searching for answers right now.
Yeah, desperately.
And then you got the Broncos. They seem to have found their identity.
They know who they are.
Exactly. And that's a dangerous combination in this league.
It is. And, you know, it's these kinds of deep dives that I really love because you uncover these storylines.
Yeah, it's not just about the X's and O's.
Right. It's the human element, the strategy, the adjustments, all that stuff that goes into an NFL season.
Absolutely. In this game, it was just a perfect example of that.
All those layers.
Yeah, it's like we're piecing together this puzzle.
Right. And every week is a new piece.
Exactly. And this game, it added a pretty intriguing piece to that puzzle.
So for everyone listening, if you're going to take one thing away from this deep dive, it's keep an eye on both these teams.
Yeah, this story is far from over.
Not even close. If anything, it feels like it's just getting started.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of the NFL, right?
Right. The only thing predictable is its unpredictability.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another deep dive in the books. Make sure you tune in next time as we continue to break down all the biggest storylines and most intriguing matchups from around the league.
It's going to be a wild ride.
You know it is. Thanks for listening, everyone.